My name is Clara Whitfield. When I was a child, they gave me the room no one wanted, by the basement, by the water heater. They said I was the resilient one, so I learned to be invisible. I paid for groceries when Mom lost her hours and tutored Marcus through every exam. I thought sacrifice would earn me belonging. Instead, on his 35th birthday, he screamed, "Get out!" My mother giggled, my father looked away. I walked out in the dress I had worn for them, and the very next morning I stepped barefoot into my own beachfront estate in the Hamptons, worth $42 million, paid in full. They still do not know where I went, but they will, because I kept the records, and I turned invisibility into empire. The room at the back of the hallway was always mine. It was not really a bedroom, more like a utility closet someone had emptied and dropped a cot into. The walls were stained from moisture, and one of them had a crack that started near the floor and climbed all the way up like a warning in winter. The heating vent rattled so loud it sounded like it was choking. In summer, the window unit just recycled stale air that smelled like rust, but still, Mom insisted it was practical, like a little hideaway in a storybook. Marcus got the master suite upstairs, 3 windows all south-facing, so the light flooded in every afternoon. He had a gaming setup, velvet curtains, and posters of athletes who looked nothing like us. I was not envious, not then. I was exhausted of asking and getting half answers, exhausted of hearing, "You are the tough one, Clara," like that meant I did not deserve to need anything. From as early as I can remember, I was the one who knew where the first aid kit was. I was the one who walked to the drugstore when Dad had a migraine. I was the one who had to skip activities if Marcus had practice. He would sprawl on the recliner, pampered like a prince, while I packed his gear and sorted the laundry. And if I needed rest, "Well, you will recover quickly, honey," Mom would say, already scrawling her tablet. Once, when I was about 13, I asked Dad if we could switch rooms, just for the winter. He looked up from his crossword and said, "Your brother's room has the bathroom attached. You want him stumbling around at night?" That was the end of it. No conversation, no negotiation. My comfort did not seem to factor in. When I slipped on the icy back steps hauling groceries a week later, I got on a roll every semester, every year. I volunteered at the animal shelter. I helped Mr. Patterson next door with yard work when his back gave out. No one instructed me. It just felt like what I was meant to do. I thought maybe if I was excellent enough, I would finally earn a space that felt like mine. Then came senior year. I had spent the entire summer in the public library basement prepping for my college applications. I wanted biomedical engineering. I loved systems. I loved the precision of it, the way components integrated, if you just studied carefully enough. People did not work like that, but circuits did. When the MIT acceptance arrived, I did not open it right away. I held the envelope in my hands, breathing like something precious lived inside it. When I finally tore it open and saw the words "full scholarship," I pressed the letter to my heart and laughed. A full ride, Massachusetts. My life was about to begin. That night at dinner, I waited until Marcus finished telling the story of his basketball tryout. He had everyone's focus, even Dad's, who rarely engaged from his end of the table. When the room finally quieted, I said it softly. "I got into MIT, full scholarship." Silence. A full second of silence. Then Mom blinked. "Massachusetts? That is really far, sweetie." Dad grunted. "Is that the one in Boston?" "Cambridge." Mom wiped her hands with her napkin. "Well, I suppose you will have to arrange your living situation and all that we cannot assist with. Travel? I do not need assistance. It is all covered." Marcus stabbed a piece of chicken. "So you are just abandoning us? I am going to university. You are abandoning me," he said. And that was the moment, not the letter, not the scholarship, that moment when he made it about himself. When Mom reached over and touched his arm and said, "She is not abandoning you, honey. We will manage." I did not cry. I did not argue. I nodded, excused myself, and walked outside. There was no celebration, no cake, no congratulations card. I packed my belongings in silence. Over the next 2 months, my room did not take long. Most of my possessions fit in 2 suitcases and a backpack. Marcus complained when I rolled them into the hallway. He told me I was selfish, that the house would feel strange without me, that Mom was already stressed, but he did not offer to help carry anything. The morning I left, Mom handed me a packed lunch. Ham sandwich, no mayo, just how I preferred it. But her face was tight, like she was suppressing 100 things. She kissed my forehead. Dad honked from the driveway. He would not be stepping out of the vehicle, he said. He was running late. When I walked down the steps and looked back, Marcus stood in the doorway with his arms folded. "You think you are superior to us now?" he asked. I did not answer, not then. The drive to the airport was silent. Dad dropped me off at departures without switching off the engine. I hugged my carry-on and stepped onto the sidewalk as he drove away. No wave, no farewell. I flew across the country with a heart full of sorrow and anticipation tangled together like thread. In Cambridge, the air was crisp and the sidewalks smelled like coffee in the mornings. My dorm room was compact, but it had a window, and daylight streamed in like an invitation. For the first time in my life, the space around me belonged to me. But even then, late at night, I would sometimes reach for my phone. I would scroll through old messages, check voicemails I never returned. I kept my number the same for years. Part of me believed someone would reach out, that one day they would say the words I always wanted to hear. "We appreciate you, Clara. We are proud." But the phone stayed quiet, and so did I. I filled my days with textbooks, research, and cheap tea at Boston University. I felt like I had finally stepped into a life that did not require, "I apologize for breathing." No one there knew I came from a family where silence was louder than recognition. No one knew I used to sleep in a damp room beside a water heater. They just saw me a systematic mind, a reserved girl with sharp analysis. And in those classrooms and laboratories, that was enough. I worked part-time at a campus cafe to cover expenses. The scholarship did not. Nights were long, and I often fell asleep with my notebook still warm beside me. But it was a good kind of fatigue, the kind that felt like progress, like maybe, just maybe, I was constructing something real. In my junior year, I landed a summer internship at a small biotech company in Kendall Square. It was modest, run out of an office that used to be a printing shop, with whiteboards on every wall and beanbags no one ever utilized. The team was lean, young, ambitious. I was just another intern until I met Nathan Brooks. He was the lead researcher, about 6 years older than me, with permanently tousled hair and a worn leather jacket. He wore even in August. The first time I presented a solution at the weekly sync, he did not say "good work" like others did. Out of courtesy, he asked to review my methodology. Then he called me into his workspace later to ask how I had reasoned through the problem. Most people acknowledged the outcomes. Nathan cared about the process behind it. We stayed late some evenings, going through lines of data like puzzle pieces. He NGD'd me, not because he questioned me, but because he believed in me. For the first time, someone looked at my intellect like it was a resource worth developing. That autumn, I turned down 2 return offers to stay in Cambridge and continue working part-time for Nathan's team. I did not inform my family. By the time I graduated, I had already been promoted to associate researcher. The company was expanding into personalized medicine, and I proposed an idea during a meeting one day, a simple, streamlined platform that could help patients track treatments, automate medication reminders, and reduce hospital readmissions. Nathan did not dismiss it. He leaned forward, eyes focused, explain more. Within 4 months, we resigned our positions and filed an LLC. We worked out of my apartment for the first 8 weeks, surviving on instant noodles and granola bars. The apartment was small, with mismatched furniture and a temperamental radiator, but it had a wide desk by the window where we set up our monitors. We named the platform HealthSync. Nathan handled the infrastructure while I obsessed over user experience. We launched a beta within 8 months. By then, we had secured modest funding from a local healthcare incubator. It was not substantial, just enough to stop surviving on packaged meals every night. The first time we hit 15,000 users, we celebrated with $5 burritos from a cart on Massachusetts Avenue. Nathan raised his bottle of sparkling water like it was champagne. To people on the outside, we were just another pair of 20-somethings chasing a vision. But to me, it was the first time I had created something that felt mine. One evening, maybe a year in, I was debugging an issue when my phone buzzed. It was my mother. I hesitated. The last time we had spoken, she spent 25 minutes describing Marcus's new promotion at a local firm. She had not asked what I was doing or how, just said, "Your brother is doing well." Still, I picked up. Mom launched right in. "Marcus got recognized in the company newsletter. Is that not wonderful?" I said nothing. Then she asked if I was still working at that little startup. I almost corrected her, almost told her I was the CEO now, that I had signed our first major partnership agreement last week, that our user base had grown by 40% in 3 months. But I stopped myself. She would not register it. So I said, yes, still working. She hummed like that was sufficient, then added, "Marcus might visit Boston next spring. Maybe you two can connect." I said, sure. After we hung up, I stared at the dark screen of my phone for a long time. Nathan walked in with 2 teas. "You all right?" "Yeah, just family matters." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Nathan did not inquire much about my background. He never intruded. But one night during a snowstorm, we sat on the fire escape, watching flakes drift down the alley, and he said something I never forgot. Sometimes, when the people who are supposed to cherish you the most do not recognize you, you start constructing mirrors in your mind. You keep searching for yourself in their reflection, and you never locate it. I did not respond. I did not need to. In the second year, we relocated into a shared workspace in downtown Boston. It was not elegant, but it had natural light and a coffee machine that functioned most of the time. We hired our first designer, a colleague of Nathan's from graduate school, then a customer success lead, then a junior developer. HealthSync crossed 200,000 users by spring, but still, I did not inform my family. Not about the platform, not about the Series A funding, not even when we were featured in a healthcare innovation column in a national publication. I observed from a distance as Marcus posted his gym selfies and weekend getaways. Every now and then, I would receive a forwarded email, FR. Mom about a local community event or her book club gathering. There was always some mention of Marcus at the conclusion. I would reply with a brief note, "Glad to hear things are going well." It became our pattern. They existed in a world where Marcus was the center. I had accepted that until the world I was constructing started to generate its own gravity and people started to notice. Not the ones I had waited years to hear from, but the right ones. They were healthcare investors, medical grant officers, even a few curious journalists who called me Miss Whitfield instead of just Clara. It felt unusual and validating all at once. Our growth was steady but genuine. Every week brought a few more users, a few more testimonials, a few more reasons to keep going. But then the metrics plateaued. Then they declined. Customer feedback became harsher, not because we failed to deliver the fundamentals, but because our competitors had begun doing more and faster. Our small team worked diligently, but we did not have the budget for advanced features or expensive integrations. What we had was vision. What we lacked was time. 18 months after our official launch, one of our seed investors requested a meeting. I walked in with a folder of charts, projections, and a hopeful heart. I walked out with a deadline. If we did not demonstrate significant user growth in the next 60 days, they were withdrawing. I remember standing on the sidewalk outside that office in Back Bay, the autumn breeze so gentle it almost felt like sympathy. Nathan was not in that meeting. He said he had another call, a pitch presentation for a potential Series B. I did not think much of it then. That week, I did not sleep much. I ran optimization tests on our onboarding flow, redesigned portions of the dashboard, even rewrote our support documentation to sound warmer. Our team followed my direction, but the atmosphere was tense, like we all sensed something approaching and no one wanted to articulate it. Then, on a quiet Wednesday morning, I opened our company email and found a thread I was not supposed to see. It was forwarded to me by mistake, or perhaps not. The subject line read, Acquisition Discussion, MedVault Technologies. My breath caught. I read the body 3 times. Nathan had signed on with one of our closest competitors, a well-funded platform that had approached us 8 months earlier about a merger. We had declined. He had not. There was no resignation letter, no discussion, just a name on a contract and a dotted signature that no longer belonged to my co-founder. I stared at my screen until the cursor stopped blinking. Then I closed the laptop and walked out of the co-working space. No one noticed. Over the next 2 weeks, things disintegrated rapidly. Our investor followed through on the exit. A second one did the same. We could not meet payroll for the following month. I held a team meeting in the kitchen next to the malfunctioning coffee machine and told everyone the truth. No tears, just facts. I offered to assist each of them find other positions, wrote recommendations, sent introduction emails. I cleared out my desk, left the succulent Nathan gave me on the windowsill. It had withered weeks ago. That final night, I stayed until past midnight. The office had been quiet for days, but that night it felt truly vacant, not just in space, but in spirit. I packed the last of our files, unplugged the monitors, and pulled the whiteboard calendar off the wall. There was a date circled in blue, our projected milestone for 1 million users. I smiled at it, a small, tired smile. Then I reached for the screwdriver and removed the health sync sign from the glass door. It came off with a small snapping sound, not dramatic, just real. I sat cross-legged on the floor, the sign resting against my knees, and let myself feel it, the failure, the conclusion. Of something that once made me feel unstoppable. Outside a few cars passed on Boylston Street somewhere, someone was ordering coffee at the all-night diner across the street. Life continued. I booked a rideshare. The driver did not speak. He played soft piano, and I looked out the window the entire ride back. Boston passed by in muted tones, like it knew I needed stillness. When I got home, I did not unpack the boxes. Instead, I opened a fresh notebook. No branding, no presentation, just ideas. Lines began forming, arrows, questions. I sketched out problems I still believed in solving, not with grand promises or press releases, but with something quieter, smarter, more resilient. Nathan was gone, the team was gone, but I was still here. And this time, I was not going to inform anyone, not yet, not until the product spoke for itself, not until the foundation was built, not until I had my own kind of gravity again. I closed the notebook. The night was quiet, and I was still the last one departing the office, even if that office was now a studio apartment with chipped paint and a desk too small for dreaming. But I was going to dream anyway. I started waking at 5 every morning, not because I wanted to, but because my mind would not let me rest. Ideas poured in, chaotic and urgent, and I would capture them on sticky notes, napkins, the back of receipts. I was afraid if I did not, they would vanish, just like HealthSync had. At first, it was all theory. I tested algorithms in my apartment, coded late at night while the upstairs neighbor practiced violin. I knew what I wanted this time, a wellness platform that did not guilt people for struggling, that adapted to them like a trusted companion would. I called it Beacon, not officially, not yet, just a word scribbled across a page, but it felt right, warm, steady, like something people would trust. I did not want a co-founder this time, no board seats distributed for friendship, no face of the company to smile on stage while I rebuilt every back-end process alone. Still, I knew I could not do it entirely solo. I needed a team, small, sharp, quiet. I found Elena first, a data scientist who had left a major hospital system after watching her predictive models get diluted by administration. Then David, a regulatory expert who despised red tape but loved precision. We were unconventional together, meeting in borrowed conference rooms and modest coffee shops around Cambridge, but we moved fast, faster than I ever had before. And this time, I did not list myself as CEO. I did not accept interviews. I did not put my name on press releases. Elena became the public face. She did not want it either at first, but she understood. She said the technology should lead, not the personalities, and she did not mind absorbing some attention while I worked behind the curtain. We launched the beta quietly, 7 months in, no fanfare, just a waiting list and a commitment to listen. Users trickled in, curious and cautious. We answered every message ourselves. We fixed bugs in real time. And when someone wrote, "This actually helped me manage my chronic condition," I sat down and cried in the kitchen. We gained traction, grants, mentions in industry newsletters, venture capital circled around, but we were not ready. Not until the code felt bulletproof, not until the model learned without bias. 3 years in, we filed for a patent on our AI engine. I signed it with my full legal name, tucked into a line of technical authorship, no titles, just initials, at a digital health summit in New York. We were invited to demo. Elena would present. I would watch from the audience like just another researcher with a lanyard and tired eyes. The conference hall was sleek and unforgiving, full of people who said things like exit strategy and market positioning over $12 lattes. Our booth was small, a single monitor, looping Beacon's interface, and a bowl of mints we forgot to replenish. Alina stood tall, confident, but authentic. She did not oversell. She walked through our origin, our philosophy, and then the platform itself. No magic, just mathematics done correctly. When the Q&A opened, a man in a tailored blazer raised his hand. He did not introduce himself, just said, "Who is the architect behind the Beacon logic framework?" Elena glanced at me. I shook my head, just barely. She smiled and said, "We are a collaborative team." The man smirked. Interesting, because the patent filing lists C. Whitfield as the lead contributor. A ripple went through the room. I felt my hands clench in my pockets. Elena did not flinch. "Yes," she said, "that is correct." "Is she present?" he asked, scanning the rows. I stayed seated. Another investor whispered something to his colleague. I caught the word stealth. Elena changed the subject. She always had timing. She pulled the screen to show Beacon's real-time adaptation tool, and the crowd leaned forward again. The moment passed, but I felt its weight afterward. In the hallway, Elena handed me a bottle of water. "You okay?" I nodded. He was not wrong, but I am not ready to be public. "You do not owe them a name," she said. "You built something better than that." That night, I walked the High Line alone. The lights from the skyline shimmered like scattered ideas I had not caught yet. I stopped at a bench and sat thinking about everything I had given up, the recognition, the applause, even my own name. But I did not feel regret. Beacon was growing. Our users trusted us. Our model worked. And my name, buried in legal code and invisible strings, was enough. I did not need a spotlight. I needed freedom. Freedom from being compared to Marcus, freedom from the weight of eldest child responsibility, freedom to build without being dismissed. As I headed back to the hotel, I passed a bookstore with a display that read, "The Narratives That Shape Us." And I thought, not every story needs a cover photo. Some just need to be told in the right language, quietly, accurately, authentically. The next morning, we received our first acquisition offer, and we did not say yes, not yet. I had not been back to Philadelphia in over a decade, not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when Mom had minor surgery 3 years ago. She texted me after the hospital released her, not during. That was our rhythm. Now, distance and delay. The invitation came in a cream envelope addressed in Marcus's neat handwriting. Inside, a glossy card read, "Join us to celebrate Marcus's 35th birthday." There was a photo of him on the back, grinning in a navy blazer, champagne glass raised. Mom had added a note in blue ink. "Hope you can make it home, Clara." She still wrote the word home like it belonged to all of us. I almost discarded it, but then I did not. I purchased a bottle of Bordeaux from a local vineyard outside the Hudson Valley, one that was not sold in stores. And from a dusty box in my closet, I pulled out an old photograph. Mom used to treasure, a black and white image of Grandma by a lake, the kind she had said reminded her of childhood, even though we had never been. When I landed at Philadelphia International, the humidity hit like a barrier. I stood on the curb, gripping the neck of the wine bottle through a paper bag, and waited for a rideshare. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. He asked. I nodded. The house looked the same: green shutters, gravel driveway, wind chimes that always tangled in each other. Balloons were tied to the porch rail. Inside, people laughed in bursts, the kind that followed champagne and easy privilege. I knocked. Dad opened the door. He stared for a moment too long, like seeing me required processing. "You came," he said. I held up the wine and the photograph. Figured he had enough candles. He chuckled. Not warm, but not cold either. Just uncertain inside the living room, pulsed with music and the scent of catered appetizers, Marcus stood near the fireplace wearing a cream sweater like he was hosting a gallery opening. People swirled around him, orbiting like he was gravity. Mom approached with a rehearsed smile. "You look well. So do you." I handed her the photograph. She blinked, then smiled for real. "This? You kept this?" I nodded. "I remember you treasured it." She squeezed my hand briefly, then turned to greet someone else. That was the most affection we had exchanged since I was 21. I stayed near the hallway for a while, sipping my wine slowly, watching from the periphery. A few cousins waved. Aunt Margaret asked if I was still doing science things. I said yes and left it at that. Dinner was set in the backyard under string lights. I found a seat at the far end of the long table. Marcus made a speech about growing older, finding your purpose, and knowing who your real supporters were. Then the toast started. When it came to Mom's turn, she raised her glass and said, "To my wonderful son, who has never stopped making us proud." Dad followed, "You have always been the light in this family." I sipped my wine, then Marcus stood again, holding his glass with both hands like he was at an award ceremony. And let us not forget my big sister Clara, who vanished for a while. He grinned. "Seriously? Where did you go? Witness protection?" A few guests chuckled. "No headlines, no interviews, no keynote speeches. I mean, did you get recruited by a monastery?" I set my glass down carefully. Marcus's voice rose. "Come on, Clara, share something. Remind us you exist." I pushed my chair back. The gravel shifted beneath my heels. Marcus blinked. "What if you cannot be part of the celebration? Maybe you should not be here." I did not answer. I turned toward the gate behind me. He snapped, "Get out." The words hit me like a slap, but what stung more was the silence from the rest of the table. Then Mom laughed, not cruelly, just lightly, like someone brushing off static. Dad smirked into his wine. "Get out," Marcus said again, louder this time, as if the first time had not landed enough. So I walked. The gravel crunched, the wind chimes clattered above the porch. No one followed. I did not slam the gate. I did not need to. The echo of his voice, of their laughter, tucked under napkins and half-empty glasses, stayed with me longer than any door ever could. At the curb, I opened the rideshare app. The screen flickered for a moment before loading. I realized my hands were trembling, not from anger, but from something quieter. Disbelief, maybe, or the weight of an answer I had known for years but kept hoping would change. A car pulled up. I got in. The driver did not speak. We passed the sign for the highway, then the airport exit. I glanced down and noticed I still had the wine bottle unopened. I considered leaving it on a bench, but instead, I cradled it in my lap. It deserved better company. I did not check into the hotel. I did not even bother canceling the reservation. At the airport curb, I pulled out my phone and changed my flight, red-eye to JFK. I did not want room service or fresh linens or a view of the Philadelphia skyline. I wanted out. The plane was nearly empty. I took a window seat and watched the lights shrink behind me. Somewhere in that city, my parents were probably loading the dishwasher. Marcus was still the star of his own party. No one would notice I was gone until someone realized the wine bottle never got opened. We landed just before sunrise. New York was hazy, the lights soft and gold. I picked up my small suitcase, still packed with clothes I had not worn, gifts I had not given, and walked through the terminal. Outside was cooler, salted faintly by the ocean. The car I had arranged months ago was already waiting. I got in, and the driver greeted me by name. "OG morning, Miss Whitfield." I nodded and looked out the window. The traffic was light. We passed through Long Island, then wound up the coastal road toward the Hamptons. The sky was turning pink now, and the ocean below shimmered like glass. The estate sat at the end of a quiet cliffside road, its gates tall and white and silent, no neighbors visible, just sand, surf, and a horizon that belonged to no one. The driver parked and helped with my bag. I thanked him, then stood alone at the front steps as the gates closed behind me. I entered the code, the door clicked open with a soft mechanical sound. Inside, everything was exactly as I had left it during the inspection. Hardwood floors, pale oak staircase, floor-to-ceiling windows that faced the ocean. It smelt faintly of cedar polish and new beginnings. I set the suitcase down and walked barefoot through the hallway, trailing my fingers along the wall. I ended up in the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. The silence was deep but not heavy. It did not press down on me the way silence used to in shared spaces filled with judgment. This was a different kind, a clean kind. I opened the doors to the terrace. The wind lifted my hair gently. Below, waves rolled in slow and steady. Gulls circled above, unbothered. I leaned against the railing, my fingers cool against the stone, and watched the horizon for a long time. The sale had been in motion for 7 months. The offer was placed through a private firm. The funds came from the Beacon acquisition, carefully structured so no part of the public deal included my name. It was all legal, all quiet. Beacon's buyout had gone through without fanfare. The announcement listed the acquiring company, their new product suite, and a few placeholder names from the new executive team. I was not mentioned once, just a footnote in the patent line. Proprietary AI framework, authored by C. Whitfield. That was enough. My attorney had called me the week before. "It is complete," she said. "Wire confirmed, you are now the sole owner of the Hamptons property." I had not told anyone, not my team, not old friends, certainly not family. Back inside, I wandered through the rooms. The office had built-in bookshelves still empty. The bedroom windows faced the sea. The walk-in closet, the light turned on automatically, illuminating polished shelf and empty hangers. It did not feel like a void, it felt like a promise. I walked back downstairs and sat in the living room. The couch was soft, neutral cream, the kind of comfort that did not call attention to itself. I pulled the blanket over my legs and just sat. No laptop, no whiteboard, no planning, just stillness. For the first time in years, I did not feel the urge to explain myself. Not to a team, not to a partner, not to a parent wondering what I did for a living. No press to charm, no investors to convince, no man to validate me. Just me and the space I had built with silence and persistence. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, just to listen. The wind, the ocean, the faint creak of the house settling, it all sounded like breathing. I thought of the photograph I had brought to Philadelphia, how Mom had smiled, briefly, like a memory had touched her. Then how quickly she turned away, how easily Marcus had pulled the attention back like he always did. Here, there was no one to pull anything away. I opened my eyes and looked around again. If you have ever been pushed out of the place that was supposed to be your home, tell me, would you build something new, or would you go back and knock on that same door again? I would love to hear your story. And if you saw even a small part of yourself in mine, leave a like or drop a note. Sometimes the quietest voices carry the furthest.